Hello Tech Pros, episode 113.
If it's in your heart to do what you're doing right now, as a business that maybe turned from a hobby, it'll still be in your heart after. You have to stay persistent. It's never going to be a rainbow road every single day, and that's just the way life is.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Gene Perpillant.
Hey,
happy Monday, Gene.
Hey, happy Monday to you too.
Are you doing well?
I actually am now.
You are now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. Well, I'm glad you are now. I'm doing well too, and I'm super hyped up and motivated to get this week started. How about yourself?
Actually, you know what? I am too. I had a really, really productive Monday. Mondays usually are like kind of busy. A lot of things catching up from the weekends and kind of getting things set up for the rest of the week. And I actually was a busybody today, and I feel great about it.
Awesome. So many of our listeners here today are just getting their day started. So I can't wait to take your high level of energy and your successful productivity into this interview so we can get our audience fired up and guide them through the week as well.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Gene Perpillant is the founder of Design Theory, which is a creative agency based out of Orlando, Florida, that creates great-looking professional photography and beautifully functional WordPress websites. Gene, did I get your name right?
You did. Very good.
Did I get it close enough anyway?
You did it close enough to get by.
So because we were joking about this before we started recording. So tell us what your name really is.
Yeah. Correct pronunciation would be Jean Perpillant. It's actually French.
Jean Perpillant. Gene Perpillant.
There you go.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yeah, that'll work.
Awesome. So, Gene, what do you do there at Design Theory? Tell us about the business that you're running.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I started the firm out in 2008. My background actually is in computer repair, and I used to do really pretty much mobile computer repair. And once the market kind of dried up in terms of people actually looking forward to buying a custom built computer that can last them very, very long, I started to get more calls for web design. And so I decided to kind of jump right into it without any formal teaching other than what I was able to learn on my own via Google and some self-help books, aka some dummy books, and trial and error. And I just enjoyed it so much, and that bloomed into a creative agency where we develop now exclusively, where we came from HTML websites, we exclusively develop WordPress websites, as well as creating beautiful professional photography for events, headshots, business, and things of all those sorts. So we're in a lot of things in creative. We also do a little bit of business development with the clients that we've had, and so a little bit of graphic design as well, because that kind of plays a role in things when you're creating a site or when you're looking at doing some photography. So in the creative space, we kind of have our hands in a lot of specific areas, but at the same time, we kind of stay in those areas where we don't delve out into other things that we're not really good at.
Right. Yeah, focus on the things that you're really good at and just maximize those, rock them out, and then just like outsource or say, no thanks, I can't help you there on those things that, you know what, you're not ever going to be an expert at.
Right. I agree. There are other people that are, and it's great for you to partner with them that are better than you in those things, and things will work out even better for you.
Awesome. Well, I love the fact that you shared that you don't have like formal training, like years of college where you've gone to specifically for graphic design or for, website design or anything like that, because I have come from that background too. I have come from the DIY, learn as you go, just a nerdy kid dorking around with technology because it was fun, and struggled during my college years, not when I was going to college, because I didn't really never really showed up for class. Anyway, that's a different story. But
right. That's
but the just struggled with what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do when I quote unquote grow up? And meanwhile, I was building video games and hacking code for fun and stuff like that. And somebody's like, you know what? I got a project for you. I'll pay you. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now here we are 20 years later with 20 years of experience doing stuff. So, man, I'm glad to meet you because sometimes I'm surrounded by all these computer science majors and all these, design folks with so much education, and I feel like the dummy in the room. But
no,
really,
not necessarily. It's nothing to feel bad about. It's nothing to feel inadequate about.
Mm-hmm.
That's just their choice of study. It's not that you did anything wrong or that we did anything wrong in going with the self-help route. There's still things that can be learned in the self-help route of things that going the traditional or conventional way of learning through college or through studies, you may not pick up because it may not be true real world. It's case studies,
Yeah, and I think there's not a right or wrong way to do it. There are different styles, and as long as you apply yourself and you're passionate about it, you know what, whichever style works for you, man, more power to you.
I agree.
So speaking of doing things the right way or the wrong way or the indifferent way, today's Motivation Monday on Hello Tech Pros, and it's all about like we said at the beginning of the show, like attacking the week with a high level of enthusiasm, a high level of energy, so that we can be at that fast-paced, like high productive state and carry that through Productivity Tuesday and then on through the week to really get things done. But Gene, we're human, sometimes we don't feel like a Motivation Monday. Sometimes we struggle really, really hard with just like, dude, I don't want to get out of bed today, let alone do this podcast, or let alone, fight with my Wi-Fi in my house or
right.
whatever the problems are that are going on.
Right.
So what I would like from you is for you to tell us that personal story of the time that you struggled with motivation and really take us back to that moment, set us up with what was going on in your life, where were you, and then what was the problem that really got you down instead of allowing you to be motivated.
Oh man, so let's imagine that I'm laying on your couch with my head way back and my hands over my head, like I am distressed
and I'm smoking a pipe.
Yeah, and you're smoking a pipe, and I really am. There's like a fireplace in the background, like crackling fire, right?
Nice.
I about a year and a half ago, I manage a lot of websites and a lot of domains. And at the time, and I kind of grew them that way as my business started growing, since 2008. And I had all of them on one hosting platform. And I'm not going to name the names because that's kind of, for right now, that's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really know what I was doing necessarily. I knew how to kind of set up a site, set up a domain, build a site, and then, create email addresses and all that other stuff through a control panel and all the things that work on when everything is working side of things. Well, one day I got an email from my hosting provider saying that there was a bunch of spam that was on my domain, and they wouldn't tell me necessarily where. They just said there was spam, and there's malicious files, and I need to go in there and clean them all up. And until I clean them all up, they're shutting down every single one of my sites.
Oh my!
At the time, I was managing probably north of 23 or so domains, and all of those were business. And I'd say 90% of them were business sites that I had built for clients, anywhere from mechanics to hairdressers to and then a couple of personal sites, but most of them were business sites. And so when they decided to do that, they did that at late in the afternoon on a Friday, and by the time I was able to see the email and get to it, their department for helping out with those types of things, the level 2 technical support, was closed for the weekend. So imagine the type of knot that you get in your stomach when your site, as well as all of your client sites, decide to go down, and there's nothing you can do about it, and there's no one you can ask about it, and you don't know what to do. It's never happened before. So what happened was there were files that somehow got infected with malicious a malicious injection. And the long story short on that part, I found out that it was from one of the sites that I had where the passwords to log into the site were not secure. And they found their way with this hacker found his way into the server through that site, and then infected all of my client sites. And so it was, like I said, everything was totally down. And what I had to do ultimately was replace probably well over I'm going to say several hundred files. And if you've ever installed WordPress before, it's several files. It's tens of, I'm not going to say hundreds of files, but it's many files for every WordPress installation. And so times that by about 23 or 24 sites, you've got a good number of files that you've got to go through and decide whether or not you want to keep or you want to remove, and whether or not you have a relevant backup to do something about. So I did all of that and got the sites back up by, when I thought that I had them all set for Monday morning, and I'm, first thing in the morning to call support to get them to take a look at everything, and they said everything seemed to be fine. And so I, breathed a sigh of relief, because I only got one email from a client that said that they noticed their website was down and told them to be back up, by Monday, and everything was cool. And I thought that everything was fine at that point. And then a couple days later, I get another email from the hosting provider, and again, there's malicious files on the site. They're taking everything down. They sent me another list of files that I need to go and clean, and this time the list is different, slightly different than the files before, but a lot of the files are the same. So now I'm trying to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do? I figure out that I need to go in and change permissions, reload new files, redo installations, and I'm doing all this stuff. Thankfully, I was able to get things set for the next morning, put the sites back up. This process literally happened for I'd say about 8 months.
Whoa.
Where every other day, if not once a week, eventually got to once a week, or maybe even twice a week or 3 times a week, where this would happen, where I could be eating dinner and I get a notification that something, that there's malicious files. I'd have to rush up from dinner or rush home from where I was, whether it was grocery shopping, whether it was out hanging out with my kids at the park, whether it was, wherever that I was. I had to stop what I was doing, rush home, and if I wasn't and eventually I got to the point to where I just took my laptop with me everywhere I went, because I needed to stop somewhere and go and fix these files before the hosting company decided to shut down all my sites. And I've gone through all types of security. I went through scanning. I thought it was my computer. Then I'm telling my clients to change their passwords, and they're saying that they've done it, and I can't verify whether or not they did or not. But on my computer, I had no viruses. I'm using a Mac, and so really didn't think I had any to begin with, but I scanned anyway. And lo and behold, after several months, I found out that it actually was the hosting provider that actually had the issue. And they were the ones that were passing off the problem to, well, I would say to us. And lo and behold, there was, and I did everything that I thought I could do at the time. And so what I learned from that was I had to diversify all of my client sites. I couldn't have all of my eggs in one basket. And so now I operate with, we've gotten north of probably 60 or so client sites and domains that we manage, and they're all diversified over about 4 different hosting providers, completely different, not just accounts, but just completely different providers, so that way they're on completely different servers and things like that. Now, in terms of motivation, you have to have some level of motivation to be able to kind of get through that. And I'm not saying that, through all of that, I was gung-ho, I was excited, I was, vigilant about what was going on. I was very depressed. I started to lose weight. I started to lose a little bit of hair. I started to notice some bald patches, and that's how I knew I was losing hair. I went to the doctor, and they were telling me that there was nothing I could do about it, and it's probably age. What else happened? There was a bunch of, like I said, health issues that came from that. But I was very distraught. Among everything else, I had been doing what I thought that I knew that I could do for a good couple of years. I enjoyed what I was doing and felt like, all I could do was just continue to grow and continue to grow. And this kind of made me take a complete back seat to what I thought where I was going to. Now I need to reevaluate whether or not this is something I even can do. Am I qualified to do this? Because I'm a tech person, but I'm not a server technical person. I don't get in there and run, putty, lines of script, and I'm not doing SSH and cron jobs and things like that. I didn't know anything about those things at the time, and they're telling me this is what you have to do. I'm reading stuff on YouTube. I'm watching videos on YouTube. I'm reading stuff on online, and they're giving me all these different types of things that I could try to do, but I didn't know. And so, like I said, it was a very long 8 months. And really, even with my wife as being by my side, and I appreciate her for that, and I still do, it was a lot of dark days and dark nights.
Man. Wow, Gene, that's that sucks. That's a horrible position to be in. We've all had periods where we've had to put out a fire, right?
Yeah.
That's very
Right.
common where, hey, stuff just blows up today, and
Right.
you know what? All the plans that I had to be proactive and get stuff done, and all my to-do lists, they're just gonna have to sit for a while because I have to go put out a fire.
Right.
But I'm just trying to imagine the state of my life is nothing but putting out fires. I'm not a firefighter.
Right. I'm not a firefighter.
Right.
Right.
I'm a builder. Right. I'm a builder. I'm an engineer. I'm constantly building new stuff, but I can't build my new stuff because I'm always going to fight fires at any point in time, day or night, for an 8-month period, and just not be able to make any progress. Yeah, man, that would be so demotivating.
That's a
So
really good analogy about being a firefighter and not playing the firefighter role, but not being a firefighter. That's a good one.
yeah, it's just, I use that analogy a lot at work, when I was in Fortune 100, because we had a software development team, we're constantly trying to do new things. But, it was supposed to be about 50-50 of new stuff and maintenance. And the maintenance, when there were fires to put out, it was like all hands on deck. Everybody has to solve this problem and figure it out, right? But to be in a position where one problem just keeps coming back and back and back, and you're trying everything you know how to do, and then you're trying more, and you're doing all kinds of research and all kinds of, asking on forums and looking up YouTube videos and everything possibly to try to figure out what's the root cause, and still don't have a good solution. You got temporary fixes, you're changing passwords, you're alerting people, trying to, do best practices, but just not knowing the root cause to be able to actually plug the hole or stop the fire or whatever. Man, that's ridiculously hard to do.
Yeah. And imagine all of that, that's all on you. There's, a lot of us are kind of entrepreneurs or at least, business owners where it's just us. And so when you don't have anybody else to kind of really share the responsibility with, you're the front person, you're the person that people call. It's a lot, because they're looking for answers, and they're not looking for, I'll get back to you. They're looking for, I need this fixed now. Like, it's been too long for us to be dealing with this. There's no reason for us to stay with you. It's just you. And one of the things I could say is that because we've been in business for so long, and because I am, the face of the business, I think I didn't lose anybody. If I did, it was probably one person. I didn't lose any clients through it all. And I think that it was because of being as honest and transparent as I could be with everyone. But I didn't lose anybody. And so that was the one saving grace of it. But I still didn't like the fact that I had to make phone calls or emails and to kind of show that type of humility on a regular basis. It gets old.
Right. Yeah, to be humble and to be honest and transparent, that's very virtuous. That's very awesome. And I applaud you for that, because not many people have like the guts to do that. But to keep doing that over an 8-month period, how did that feel to keep going back to your clients who have been with you for a long time and are still putting up with this 8 months later and say, hey guys, I'm sorry, but we're down again. I'm still working on it. I still don't have the right solution.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. A lot of it was really trying to deal with my high value clients only, and then the ones that weren't my high value clients, that kind of had sites where they just kind of set it and forget it. I wasn't really communicating with them if I knew that, because it got to the point to where I can kind of get the sites back up and running within a day or within a couple of hours if I was vigilant enough, or if I had the time, or if I could. So then I wasn't necessarily telling them, but the ones that actually were noticing and would notice it, I was communicating that with them, and that was really hard. I ended up giving credits on the hosting that I was charging them. I ended up giving credits for a month here and a month there, and that seemed to mitigate it. But that was it. And then what I ended up doing was I moved those high value clients out of that hosting provider onto another platform, another hosting provider's platform service. And that saved that. So then it was like, okay, these guys that are going to notice this on a regular basis, let's move them out. And we did. And then there was no problems with that. Then it was like, okay, now we could just focus on these. And eventually, and that's what actually started the diversification of, and this is one of the silver linings and things you learn as you're going through things, is I learned, I was like, okay, well then if these that I moved off are doing just fine, then the problem is still here. And that's also when I found out that the problem that I was having was just with the hosting provider. It wasn't with my sites. So then I started moving away more client sites away from that provider and left with just a few. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so if the problem is happening and it's not happening anywhere else with any other site that's not here, but just these, then the problem is definitely here. And so that was an argument and a fight with that provider. And it's one of those providers that are pretty big. It wasn't GoDaddy, which I like to, bash them often, but it wasn't them. It was one that I was with since 2007, and I had an account with them since 2007, and things had been just fine. It was all of a sudden this was happening, and they were subject to a lot of DDoS attacks and script attacks, I guess because of their newfound recognition and fame. That we were all feeling the brunt of that attack.
Man, that's horrible. So, at what point in this 8-month process did you say, you know what, I got to take these high value clients and move them off to a different server and just try something new?
I think it was within the second month because I really didn't know. See, here's the thing: when you're going through something, you don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah, you
truly think that once you go over a hump. You think that hump is a mountain, and you think that, oh, okay, I made it over this. This is going to be fine, and I'm good. After this started to become a repetitive issue, I had no choice but to do that. And I ate a bunch of costs because I had to move a bunch of sites, and I had to move a bunch of, I even had to move some emails, which I typically don't do, but I had to. So I had to learn how to do that. Pulling emails from one server and moving them to another so that way things aren't lost, because there's one thing that you definitely don't want to do is have a client say that they no longer have emails that they've been storing for years and they're gone. Right. You don't want to have to say that. That's the last thing you want to say to somebody. So within 2 months, I finally moved over those high value clients and, and so that seemed to, ease my need to continue to be humble and be forward facing with what was going on, and then try to really attack where the problem may have been with the rest of the sites that I still had on the platform.
Man, goodness, man, that's just like I need to take a breath after all this story because I'm so anxious, because I know that could happen to me like at any point in time, right? So I've got my media host where all my MP3 files are for the audio for the podcast, and then of course I've got my website, but I've got a whole bunch of other websites, either for myself, personal sites, or business sites that I'm helping other people on, and I'm susceptible to that problem, and I am a one-man band, and it could happen to me. Right. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, if this happened tomorrow, if my sites were down, I'd be like, okay, put all my podcast recordings on hold. I need to attack this. I need to get it in place. Right, great. And then we get it taken care of, and a day later I'm back up and running. But if this continued to happen over and over and over multiple times a week for 8 months, man.
It's work, yeah.
It's work, yeah. So, Gene, in just a moment, I want to ask you about what we can do in this situation. Not necessarily if we get hacked. You can give us tips on security best practices and diversification. All that stuff would be awesome too. But just the emotional state of how you go through this and learn from it and just survive it, because that's a long period to be down in the dumps and worried about this stuff. So I got tons of questions about that. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Okay, we're back with Gene Perpillant. We've been talking to Gene about is in his role as the founder of Design Theory Creative Agency. He does a lot of design stuff, photography and graphic design, all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. But a big problem and struggle that he had a few years ago was his sites got hacked. Boom. Taken down, offline, malicious code all over them, and was alerted that he had to do something, take the sites down, and that the hosting provider just stopped supporting him. And so you go through and you fixed it, and then it happened again, and then you went through and you found it and you fixed it again, and you did it over and over and over for this 8-month period where your sites were up and down constantly. So if we are facing this situation, whether it's we're actively getting hacked and we're struggling with that, and maybe there are some listeners that saw the title of this episode and they're like, "Hey, dude, I'm getting hacked too. What can I do?" Mm-hmm. Maybe you have some tactical security best practice for those folks. But then from a motivational standpoint, how do we get through it? How do we survive this and not just throw in the towel and say, I give up? I'm going back to school and doing something completely different because this ain't for me.
Right. I just have to laugh about that because I really did go through that where I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to do this anymore. I'm going to be a chemist or something. So on the emotional side, let me deal with that first, and then we'll get to the technical side. The emotional side, I would say, is you really have to step back and take a breath. What I try to do is reach out to my community. When I say community, my local community. So the guys that I meet up with, once or twice a month, talking about development, and other designers and developers. I actually reached out to them and said, "Hey, here's what I'm going through. What should I do? This is a real situation. How should I attack this?" And I got a lot of advice. And the caveat with that is when you ask your peers, each of them are going to give you a different tactic or some different advice. You kind of have to take that and see what kind of works best for you. You can try them all and then, kind of process of elimination and see which tactic or which piece of advice actually worked better for you. But nonetheless, ask others who may have gone through it, or actually others who are in the same industry as you are, because chances are they may have gone through it or they know someone who has. And if they can't tell you exactly what to do, they'll probably get you in touch with somebody else who has. And so what ends up happening is that you eventually get to a point of where you can talk to somebody else who you can commiserate with. And, sadly, misery does love company. But in that situation, when you're the one who's being afflicted, you definitely feel comfort in talking to someone who has gone through it and can tell you that they've gone through it and you will get through it too. They may not be able to tell you exactly how long until you get through it, but they will give you their best practices on what they did at the time that they went through it. And so that helps a lot. So that's the first thing. The next thing that I would say is you want to get yourself, if you haven't before, you want to get yourself or figure out. Well, actually, we'll talk about contingency in a second, but you want to get yourself at least 2 or 3 mentors. And the reason why I say you want to get some mentors is because at that point, when something like that, for me, happens, you shouldn't be alone in terms of knowing what to do. You should have someone that you can directly call that's not your tech support, that you can kind of ask on what you should be doing, and so that way they can kind of help guide you. Even if they're going to guide you towards a premium solution, which means where you have to go and buy a subscription with security in order to get your sites, scanned and cleaned, or they can actually tell you, word for word, or they can get into your servers and look at what's going on. But you should have some people that you respect and you talk to on a regular basis, even if it's once a week, that you would consider or that are your mentors that can kind of get you through it. Because one, they're going to reassure you and they're going to kind of, take you under their wing a little bit tighter and tell you it's going to be okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. Because Otherwise, you feel like it's the end of the world. Every day that you get an email, when your email pops up on your phone, you're not going to want to look at it because you're worried. And then if you hear a phone call and it's coming from your hosting provider, you're not going to want to, or it's a call from your client, you're not going to want to answer it. It's going to leave an adverse effect on you emotionally as well as physically. And so dealing with that on a regular, on a day-to-day basis, it's only going to take you down even more. So having someone that you can actually trust and confide in and talk to about your situation as you're going through it will really help keep you motivated and give you that extra push to keep it going.
Awesome. Great stuff.
Yeah. And then lastly, document what you're doing. It'll really help because if you keep track of what you've done and where things have happened or where infractions may have come or what you've learned, it'll help you because that'll almost be your roadmap. If in fact it does happen again, or if you have to tell somebody else what you've done, you can go back to your documentation and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and then I did this, and then these are the things that worked, and these are the things that didn't. So that way you can say, if it happens again, you go straight to the things that worked and kind of go through them one by one, and skipping the things that didn't. Eventually, you get to the point to where something will fix your issue, and you'll be able to get through. It's kind of like creating your own map. And the last thing I would say, which is a little too late, but you'll do it as a result, is you want to make sure that you have a backup plan for all of your sites. So whether you're doing backups on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, however that frequent or infrequent that you're doing them, do them. Each client site that we have, sometimes they may or may not do changes on a daily basis, and some of them do. And for those that do, we ended up, well, I should say this. What spawned out of all of this situation was where we would just do basic hosting. We then realized through one of my mentors that we actually were doing managed hosting. However, we weren't charging for managed hosting, which means we didn't have a contingency plan. We didn't have a backup, kind of like a rainy day fund in case something does happen that you can hire someone or you can pay for something to get done. We didn't have any of those things in place because we were just doing basic hosting, which means we were charging for basic hosting, which means we were making very, very little to be able to continue going. What happened was, what we learned from one of our mentors, which I don't mind saying his name is Scott Mann. He's with HighForge, and he owns a creative agency here in Orlando. And they operate at a much higher level than I am, but it's a level that I want to be at. And he actually had gone through what I had gone through in his own infancy with his agency when he was doing it by himself. And in any case, he had mentioned, he had kind of sat down with me, and he was like, you're doing all of this on your own, and that's fine, but you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because you're only going to get bigger and you're only going to take on more responsibilities, but you're not making that responsibility known to your clients, and you're definitely not charging them for that. So what you need to do is kind of set them up, because you're doing managed hosting, you need to charge for that, and by charging for that, you're able to put money aside. If in case something does go wrong, you can put money aside to pay for advanced services, better hosting, and all of these processes, so that way things stay clean and things stay good, and you can continue to focus on what you like to do, which is building websites and being creative. And all of these other things that are working in the background will help keep your sites clean and working well and backing up and all this other stuff, so that way everyone's happy. And the way that and I was worried about pricing. He was like, well, you got to tell your clients, honestly, here's what's going on. Here's what you have to do. And yes, this is going to cost more money. Some of them are going to be okay with it. Some of them are going to respect you for it. And some of them are going to be outright and say, you know what, that's more than they can afford or they want to pay. And they're going to want to leave. You have to let those go. Because the ones that have the respect for what you're doing and understand what you're doing are going to want to pay you for that service, because they don't want to go through their websites being down for a certain period of time, whether it's an hour, a day, a week, or more. They don't want to have that downtime. And so that gave me so much more motivation and so much more clarity in terms of what I was doing. And again, all of this I didn't even realize. I never probably would have talked to Scott about what was going on. I never probably would have realized that I needed to change my prices and raise my prices had none of this happened. I probably would have continued going on the way that I was going, and probably would have ran myself, into the ground, running around doing things, all on my own, instead of setting up processes to automate and to do the security that I didn't know that I needed to do.
Man, Gene, I love how you broke that down for us. So start with just talking to your local community. Go to meetup groups, just hang around with other people who are doing the work, but supporting different customers, and just talk to them and say, hey, what would you do? But the good and bad of that is they're all going to give you advice, and you can't act on all of it. So you're going to have to just kind of pick and choose of which things you're going to implement and which things you're not. But as you're implementing it, as you're trying stuff, you're creating documentation. You're creating a step-by-step, like with timestamps of exactly everything that I did, everything that I didn't do. Here's the time when it crashed. Here's the times when I got it back up. These are the logs of all the files that I changed. Here's everything, so that, if somebody else needs to look over my shoulder, then they can okay, here's the steps that have been done. Kind of like a doctor when he asks you your medical history, right? He wants to know exactly what all has been done in the past, so that he knows kind of, okay, well, these are repeating patterns that I see, or here's some things that we haven't tried that maybe we could try. So I love that. And then the fact that you got mentors, and you really suggest finding mentors who are not just peers doing the same thing, but people who have been there, done that, and then move forward and have a bigger, stronger career because of the obstacles that they faced in the past, and being involved with those people, even if it means paying into a premium service and hey, be part of their program or whatever to do that. Because sometimes, man, when the stuff hits the fan, you're going to really, really need to count on them and make sure that they're available to talk to you and work through this. And then the fact how you said that, God, we just gotta work through this and have backup plans and change the model of sometimes the way we're doing business. In your case, it was the prices for your hosting plans that your customers are paying for, because you're going to have contingency money to do some. But in other people's cases, it may be something else, But the fact that you may have to reevaluate your business, like what you're charging, or the types of customers that you're working with, or the way that you interact with your customers, the types of services that you want to provide, which means the level of support that they get, is really, really difficult questions that we have to ask ourselves sometimes in order to make forward progress.
That's it exactly. Yeah.
Man, Gene, there's so much information there, and this was such a great story, so thank you so much for sharing. But unfortunately, we're out of time, and we can't go into all the nuts and bolts of how to lock down your WordPress site and stuff like that, so maybe we can save that for another day. Sure. But for this conversation, can you wrap it all up with some final words of wisdom for the audience, the big takeaways that you want the audience to learn and to implement from this conversation, and then the best way that we can connect with you? And then we'll say goodbye.
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely say that if it's in your heart to do what you're doing right now, as a business that maybe turned from a hobby, it'll still be in your heart after. You have to stay persistent. It's never going to be a rainbow road every single day, and that's just the way life is. But the reason why you're in business is because you notice something, that there is a need that's out there that people can take advantage of. And so you have to stay the course. You have to understand that there is going to be good days and there's going to be just a few bad days. Push through the bad days, and I promise you things will get better. They always do. And to find me, I am everywhere at JP Design Theory. My website is jpdesigntheory.com. And like I said, all social media at JP Design Theory. And if anybody has any questions about what I did and things like that, they can feel free to reach me. And, thanks for having me on the show, Chad. I appreciate it.
Well, Gene, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value the story that you told me, not just because of the oh my gosh, I thought I was going to go play PlayStation after this conversation, but now I know that my brain is wired, and I'm going to have to go look for some contingency plans for all the different things. Can't implement them all today, but start working on those plans, because I don't want to have those problems for 8 months. I don't want to have them for one day, but if I have to have them, I want it to be just over with and done. So thank you so much for sharing that story and helping us stay motivated through the dark times. And I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, thanks.
Well, at least the thing is, now you're motivated, and that was right?
Yeah, you got me thinking so much about the future of all the steps that I need to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
It's awesome. That's a good thing.
It's a very good thing, yeah. if you're thinking what I'm thinking right now, then you've probably already logged off because you've tuned out. You're not listening to my voice because you're Googling all the different things that you need to do, right? You're looking for backup plans. You're looking for, you know what? I spent so much time. It seems like a joke now. So much time like researching the best hosting provider for my site or my sites or whatever. And now I'm thinking, you know what? There's like 3 or 4 top tier ones. I just need them all. And even if I'm not using them all like at the premium price level, just have like an account open with all of them and maybe a basic one, because I've got some other sites that I don't really like use or care about. And if they go down for a couple days, not that big a deal. But like on a whim, if Hello Tech Pros went down, like I need to be able to move stuff over. So do that research like today, tomorrow, like put that plan in place. And I would say go back and listen to this episode again, because there's a lot of key things that Gene dropped a lot of value, like wisdom bombs on us that I'm going to have to go back and check up on. And also check out the show notes here on, this is episode 113. So go to hellotechpros.com/113. We'll have all the key takeaways, all the resources that Gene has been talking about, as well as the ways that you can contact Gene and say, hey, brother, I'm having this problem. Like, can we talk? And he will be there for you. You've been listening to Gene Perpillant, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/113. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Motivation Monday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about productivity. On Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. Then next week, we start it all over again with Motivation Monday. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.